scope of coverage you won't find anywhere else. This is Weather Scope This Morning, sponsored by 100% Colombian coffee.
This is a special edition of WeatherScope, coverage of Winter Storm 96.
The winter of 95-96 continues to go down in the record books. A couple of new records this morning at Bradley Field and also in Boston, Massachusetts, breaking their all-time single-season snowfall records by at least an inch. And, you know, it doesn't appear like it's going to be over anytime soon. We got school closings across the Northeast with the new snow, and it is still coming down, where we could see another 2 to 4 inches on top of what we already have. How about that? Just what you wanted to hear, right? Let's go ahead and take a look at what has fallen across the Northeast, as well as what we think is going to come here in time. And sure enough, you know, we have been talking about the snow aspect of this, but it has not only been the snow. This has been a much larger storm, especially across the south. The flooding and the severe weather, deaths have been blamed on this particular storm as well across the south. So this has not been a pretty one for the southern states. And this morning we have these streamer snow bands that are coming into the south and producing snow, which is accumulating in places like Huntsville and Muscle Shoals and around Tupelo in Mississippi as well. So be careful traveling. Some slippery roads. We got a new inch of snow around Asheville, North Carolina. But you can see, once again, the heaviest snow sitting across the Northeast. Anywhere from 6 to 14 inches of snow. Came in with a report this morning out of Scranton. 9 new inches of snow there. Albany's got about 10 new. We'll check in with Mark in just a second. Up in the coast of Maine, also reports of 6 to 12 inches of snow around Sebago Lake. Behind the low pressure, tons of cold air filtering into the south. It's freezing this morning down here. And behind our low pressure, plenty of moisture being shot back into this cold air. And with these temperatures in the single digits and teens, we have got ourselves quite a bit of Arctic fluff coming down. And to report on that Arctic fluff this morning, our very own Mark Mancuso, standing in the Capital District of New York State. Mark, good morning, and what's the scene there in New York?
Well, last night, Jim, we were getting a little bit excited. The snow finally stopped around midnight last night, and the road crews were out and things getting nice and clean. But of course, the forecasts are calling for more snow. We said by this morning's rush hour there probably would be more snow moving in, and as you can see, it's a mess out here. Just a couple more inches of fluff to make the roads nice and sloppy. And notice these cars parked over here. You can see a big pile of snow there from the plow, and the city of Albany has declared a snow emergency. That's for tonight because they want to move the cars on one side of the road. That way they can push all that snow into the curb, make these roads, especially the side roads, a little wider, because we came into this area this morning, and we're just kind of like what we used to call a cow path to get down these side streets because the cars being parked on the side. Travel is very slick this morning. It's a slow rush hour, but as you can see, everybody's headed back to work, so all the adults have a hard day at work ahead, but the kids have the day off, as most of the schools in the area have been closed. Jim, the airport is open, so if anybody has business plans, flights are coming in and departing, but of course there will be the usual delays.
Mark, we've been talking to you since about 6 o'clock this morning. How much new snow have you got?
I'd say about 2 more inches of fluff has accumulated. I just saw a look at the Doppler radar. There's plenty more on the way. One little tidbit on the temperature. It's up to 17 degrees here, and that's probably about as warm as it's been since we've been here the past couple of days.
Well, I got to tell you, buddy, you look like you could use a cappuccino and a cannoli this morning. And
it's on the way.
It's on the way. I figured as much. We'll check back with you in just a little bit. Again, folks, the snow continues in the Northeast. We've had record snows at Boston and also into Hartford, Connecticut. I talked to my good buddy in Glastonbury, Phil Dombrowski, and he tells me schools are closed there, and he's fortunate to spend the day with the family, and also his wife is home from work as well. So things are a little rough in central New England, too. Let's take a look at the radar. We'll show you what's going on there, and also, actually, wait a minute, I have some video for you. Boston set a new record. I got to show you the video there. Let's take you into the Boston area. We can show you what happened yesterday as the snow started coming on down. Folks, obviously, in the Northeast, our most concentrated area of snow continues. Our low pressure at the surface is racing northeastward and heading up toward the Cape of Newfoundland. But behind that, the upper level system, which is helping to carve the upper level trough on out, is pulling down moisture and cold air aloft. This is creating some very unstable conditions. If you walk outside around Atlanta this morning, you can see these cumulus clouds developing. They're kind of low base, but it just kind of gives you the indication that things are not very stable aloft. And sure enough, you can see the snow and the streamers which are coming into the south. And of course, with this cold air, we've got record lows falling by the wayside from Tennessee on northward. Notice our steadiest band of snow continues. Philadelphia, Dover's got a couple of inches now. now. We have some thicker snow starting to work its way, I should say, into New York. Mark's up here, and it almost looks like some of this heavier snow is moving up through the Hudson Valley now and heading up the northway toward Albany. A little hole right now in central New England, but that looks like it'll fill back in as this snow continues to work its way northeastward. You can see it a lot better on the Doppler. Check this out. See this darker color here? That's where some of the heavier snow is. And it continues to punch on off toward the north and east. You can see the same thing, Boston, the hole that's here, but the snow, which is on the increase from the southwest and continuing to move on to the northeast. Little freezing drizzle, too, mixing in occasionally at Boston. Cold air is the big story, and behind the cold air, wind chills, making it that 22-degree temperature in Atlanta feel with a 25-mile-per-hour wind like, 9 below right now. We even have some single-digit wind chills down into the Florida Panhandle. So some ugly weather there for the spring breakers deciding to take on the Florida Panhandle for this spring break. What's the rest of the nation look like on this Friday?
The snowfall and snow removal and limited access to the runway, so check ahead with your air carriers. The midsection of the country is quiet but cold, and the western states looking quiet, except for right here along the coast. And except for right here into Florida is all snow, even the stuff of the deep south. The light snow, not enough to cancel school, kids, but just a light dusting. However, we have reports in the northeast where we have the snow. Some schools have been canceled. And as we check out the regional radar, Mark Mancuso up in Albany reporting there that a lot of the school systems have decided to call it a day, start an early and a long weekend for the kids up there. So once again, check ahead with your local radio stations for closures. But you can see the snow is marching on through the region, and those of you commuting into work, you're going to have a bit of a tough time of it here today. But for the kids, well, I'll tell you, there are going to be snowball fights galore here. Although it is a rather fluffy snow, not a lot of water content, so it can be a little tough to make the snowballs with snowmen, that's for sure for today's. But make sure they're bundled up. An umbrella this morning across the southeast, and then a sweater. It's going to be cold, and it's going to be blustery over the eastern half of the country, so bundle the kids up.
You want to be happy? You got to make your own rules.
This is a special edition of WeatherScope, coverage of Winter Storm 96.
And the winter of 95-96 continues to be one of record-setting proportions, as we have seen yet another single-season snowfall record go by the wayside. Actually, two of them, Bradley Field in Windsor Locks, Connecticut, and also Boston, Mass. Bradley up over 100 inches now. Boston closing in on 100 inches as the snow continues to fly there. A little bit of a break now across southern New England, but the radar is beginning to fill back in, and we'll show that to you in just a moment. Let's show you the areas that have been hit hard by this storm regionally. And again, folks, it is not just the storm snow aspect of this that we want to tell you about. This has been a nasty storm. Flooding, severe weather across the south. We've had deaths because of this storm as well. And obviously the snow continues to be a problem this morning to get around in the northeast. Let me show you the storm history, and you can see what's fallen so far. Again, some of the heaviest snow across interior New England, but for the first time in a while, we've actually seen more snow in the central New England and eastern New York State than, let's say, along the coast, because a lot of the season's snowfalls have been more coastal in nature than in the others. But behind the storm, even though the low pressure is offshore, we still have a ton of moisture which is being thrown back over this cold air, and sure enough, we are getting occasional light to moderate snow showers all over the place. And one of those places, believe it or not, is Anniston, Alabama, down here. As the cold air is coming on down to the south, we of course have the upper air disturbance, which is pushing on through as well. Just a lot of instability. If you go outside and look around in the south, you'll notice these very, very low top cumulus clouds, and out of some of those, there have been some snow squalls. Just got a call out of off 575. There's some snow here, which is coming down moderately right now and actually starting to accumulate on the grassy surfaces. That's north of Atlanta. Anniston, Alabama, again, in another one of those streamers, and you can just see these streamers as they're coming off the Great Lakes and heading through the south. But our persistent snow continues to be in the northeast, starting to wind down a little bit, but we still have a lot of instability to go throughout the morning and early afternoon hours, so we're going to be with this snow for a while. The heaviest concentration sitting from Albany on down and through Baltimore, where it looks like we are actually getting more intense snows right now, beginning to pull up through the Hudson Valley. And this morning, standing in the Hudson Valley, the heart of the Mohawk Valley, Mark Mancuso is on the scene, and he's got a report to us on road conditions and school closings. Good morning, Mark. Tell us about Albany this morning.
Well, Jim, the storm's been in two pieces. Yesterday we had the first shot, and that deposited about 9.3 inches at the Albany County Airport. Then the snow tapered off last night. But this morning, here comes piece number 2. And we've been watching the snowfall since the pre-dawn hours, and we've already seen about 2 to 3 inches of fluff accumulate. And as you saw on the radars there, Jim, the snow is beginning to intensify. Just during the past half hour alone, the visibilities have been reduced some, so I think we'll see a couple more inches. Rush hour's in full swing right here. As you can see, the road crews have been out. They have been plowing, and still very slick here. The salt is kind of softening up the snow, but I've talked to some of the early morning commuters. They say the throughway's okay. It's pretty much in this condition right here, kind of slushy and kind of slow, so people can get about. But I think people that are going to try to park are going to have a very hard time because there's still a lot of snow piled up here on the streets. So people who want to park for work on their favorite side street are going to have a hard time getting into their parking spot. The school closings, cancellations, the list there is just tremendous. And of course, at the airport there, we still have delays, but the airport is open, and they've been working real hard there to keep things going. So, you know, it's a winter storm here in Albany. It's not a paralyzing blizzard, but it's probably one of the most significant snows of this winter season.
Well, Mark, you've been mentioning you've been looking at the radar this morning. What access are you getting to radar up there?
I have my sources.
Oh, boy, all right. And you also probably have had a cannoli and a cappuccino since we talked to you last time, huh?
Not yet, but I think after this break here, we're going to take a coffee break and get an update on what's happening on the road, school closings, and what's happening with the DOT.
Okay, we'll check back with you in just about 30 minutes. Folks, again, Mark Mancuso in Albany, New York, dealing with one of their top 3 storms so far this season. Well, this one was the topper, so to speak, in Boston, Massachusetts. We saw them go over the edge, so to speak. Their single-season snowfall record in Boston, Massachusetts is now set, and we'll show you when it all started. We take you yesterday into Boston, where as much as notice again this area here, which is kind of getting a little bit thicker and more widespread snows. Boston, a little bit of a break now, but it is starting to fill back in with more snows, and you can see that by looking at the Doppler. Here's back through Connecticut and across Long Island. This is all light to moderate snow back and through here, and that should be moving into Boston and just keeping their snowfall going as we go on through the day today. Now, this is a Doppler radar out of Alabama. Check this out. This is the state of Alabama, baby. And we are talking about these snow streamers, which are coming on down through Tennessee and across the south. And here's Anniston, Alabama right here. And we are getting quite a bit of reflectivity showing up on the Doppler. And don't be surprised if you're traveling. Atlanta's over here, and Birmingham, of course, being in through here. And some of these snow bands have been producing some moderate snow, so occasionally reducing visibilities down toward a half a mile, so please be careful there. The other story with this now is the cold air, which is coming on in. We are talking about cold like you've never seen in March, in some cases, record-setting cold for the date, and perhaps some of these temperatures will get to their all-time record lows for the month of March, believe it or not. We're just going to have to wait and see how that looks, especially tomorrow morning once the winds begin to die down. That is still a factor, so therefore there are still wind chill factors. Look at Atlanta. Feels like 1 below. There's Montgomery, Alabama. There's Tampa, ladies and gentlemen, where the azaleas blooming. There's 5 below in Little Rock, Arkansas. 24 down at Brownsville. This is a spring break area. This is a spring break area. Daytona Beach is a spring break area. I guess Palm Beach, or not Palm Beach, but Palm Springs would have been a much better choice perhaps this year for some spring break. Again, folks, to look at the rest of the nation, let's go to Bruce in the studio.
Thank you very much, Jim. We've got to look at your forecast. Indeed, Palm Springs is a good idea if you like the heat, and I'm sure the kids do.